hope you're ready for this.
Gonna be fun.
You will not stand in my way.
Frostborn, hunger. This pleases me.
I do not fear you, mortal.
Your soul shall be mine.
Don't make me laugh.
Needs a brew? Oh, I do. Feel a shredding, baby. Let the battle begin.
So hello and welcome to the second episode of the Nexus Trolls, a podcast all about Heroes of the Storm. So I'm your host, Linus Daz Kilius, and with me, as always, is Shiz, and Mystic's going to be our regular host as well. He guested last week, but I think we've made him a full-time host. So how you boys doing today?
It's another day in paradise. Blizzcon. Excited. Super excited for Blizzcon.
You guys catch a lot of the games?
I watched every single one and did absolutely zero work when I was supposed to be.
I just caught maybe 4 or 5 of them. I was watching MVP Black just dominate.
Yeah, I only caught a few of them also.
Yeah.
MVP Black and Ballistics dominated.
Yes, I caught a couple Ballistics games too. Korea just seems to be so dominant. It's going to be interesting to see if anyone has a chance of even taking one game against them, let alone a series. So,
I think there's a couple of teams that might be able to take one game off of them.
I'm guessing they're from Europe.
They're from Europe. No, it's actually our boys Denial. No, sadly, they're going to go down in the Ball of Flames.
Well, hey, they're both European and both North American teams are still in it. But you know what? We got a whole segment on BlizzCon, so I guess we can hold that off for then. You guys want to just jump right into it? Start with some news?
Let's do it. Let's start with the news.
Well, the brawl this week is
Hammer time.
I've been dying all week to play that bumper.
I know.
Hammer time.
Since probably last week when you're like, let them say hammer time. And then it happened, and I bet you were giddy like a little
It was pretty much a
schoolgirl.
gimme. You know when you get 5 hammers, it's going to be hammer time. Like, nothing else you can do there. So I've been queuing up that bumper since I heard it was called that. So
Oh, my gosh.
Have you guys had a chance to play any?
So mad at you.
Yeah,
Yes.
I played 3.
Most games are a landslide. Either you're landslide winning or you're landslide losing.
it's just for any
The
of
only
those
way
who,
it goes.
for any of those who haven't had a chance to jump into the brawl for this week, the brawl is hammer time, and what it is, it's 5v5 Sergeant Hammer on Towers of Doom with thrusters permanently engaged. And I gotta say, I was pretty excited for it, and I think it fell a little bit more flat than I expected. Do you guys like the brawl, or what did you think about it?
It was very, very flat, I felt like. I mean,
Yeah.
and it, as bad as it sounds, you wouldn't think this, but the matches are always very one-sided. One person's absolutely controlling every shrine. There's nothing the other team can do. They're taking all the forts down, and it's GG, or they're doing it to you, and you're just crying in a corner.
Yeah, it's a little snowbally a bit because especially if you've got a coordinated team that can just set up properly and get to that shrine early, it's tough to break that kind of siege line, I guess. One thing I noticed, though, that it's pretty much the normal hammer build that you go into it with, except there's obviously that decision at number 1, right? Like you pick stealth or the advanced damage for the distance enemies. Which one were you guys picking? Were you guys picking stealth or the other one?
I went stealth.
I went extra damage.
Yeah, I went extra damage, too. Why'd you go stealth, Mystic?
I mean,
You're a shady fellow, eh?
yeah, you know, I'm the Mystic Shroud, you know, pretty shady. Yeah, I
He
picked
is
stealth
Asian.
because if you got there early enough and you set up on the point, you could get like 1 or 2 shots on someone before they actually either got away or set up. So
I did like the stealth, but I found that I didn't get as much use out of it, probably because I wasn't using it properly. I feel like the extra 10% damage definitely helps if you're already set up, especially if you end up taking graduating range or something later on. So. Yeah.
Now, let's see who is our filthy casuals and who actually put some thought into it. Which heroics did you take?
Well, it depends. If I thought the game was going to be a long one, I would take the blunt force gun just for the 20, so you get the
Oh
overall.
my gosh.
It's nice, though. You get 2, one on the top of a shrine, one on the bottom. You can loop it around, and they can never cap the shrine, too. So that was pretty awesome if you could coordinate with someone else on your team. But, I mean, the cooldown on it's pretty rough, right? So I feel like you get a lot more
Napalm.
value out of the napalm until level 20. So
Napalm
depends.
the whole way.
Yeah, you get a lot more damage out of it in general, right? Because whatever it is,
Oh,
like
yeah.
6-second cooldown.
Oh, it's great. It's great poke, too. You just thrust her in, napalm, and thrust her out and pop your first aid.
speaking of thruster, though, I found it funny how you could take that one talent that reduces the cooldown on Thruster
I know.
when it's on all the time. I found that hilarious.
Like, that was 100% must pick right there.
Yeah, you had to pick that.
That's an overconfident
Because you
pick
have
for sure. If you pick that one, like I don't even need any of these other talents. I'm just gonna take the ones that boost my thrusters. Yeah, but it was fun. But like I said, I was kind of hoping for more. I did it maybe 5 times, and I was kind of like, you know what, I'm done with this. I got enough to talk about the podcast, so I was going to call it a day and get back to Unranked and Hero League and such. So, but other than that, like other than BlizzCon, it's been a pretty slow news week for obvious reasons. We're going to get a ton of news this weekend, which is kind of cool. And I guess we'll talk about that.
Excited.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in our BlizzCon section too. And oh man, BlizzCon's like Christmas coming early. It's amazing. We got to get out there one year for sure. Mister, don't you live out that way? Shouldn't you be going to BlizzCon?
I would if, I didn't have, like, perhaps some midterms coming up next week.
You can slough those off. What's a couple midterms, right? BlizzCon comes once a year. You got exams all year round. So.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, maybe let's jump into the strategy section then.
Hey, check it out. I added a new feature. Up, up, down, down, left, right, BA, and stop. Oh, yeah, that seems bad.
Good old Gazlo talking strategy. Okay, so
Oh my gosh.
watching those BlizzCon games, I've seen a lot of similar things almost game to game. So I want to talk with you guys about it a bit. First off, let's talk about drafting, because it seems like the drafting, obviously there's a lot of strategy to it, and people are getting a lot more exposed to it now that we've got a bit more high-profile tournament coming up. So, Shiz, what's your general drafting strategy? What do you try and ban out first? What do you try and prioritize off the bat? And how do you handle? What are you looking for in a well-rounded comp?
Well-rounded comp. You want a tank bruiser, ranged, healer, and then a solo laner. Your solo laner can fill any one of those roles, but those are the 5 things that I look for when I'm drafting a comp. If you can fill all 5 of those roles, you have a decently well-rounded comp. Now, you could have a melee bruiser. Sometimes you can have a ranged bruiser. Zarya, I feel like, is a little bit of both. Tychus could be a ranged bruiser, but then you have your melee bruisers like Thrall or Sonya or something like that. Or you could even do a double warrior comp and do it that way. But I feel like the other big thing is you gotta try to fulfill that while meeting the requirements of that battleground. Like sometimes, like your solo laner needs global presence for Cursed Hollow, so this way he's getting max value out of everything. Plus Gust on the boss points can win games. So Falstad's like amazing for that. Brightwing's really good for that. Tanks for those certain maps, like they play a factor in everything. You gotta figure out what are your win points on the maps, and if he usually has a boss on the map, your boss is usually late game are the win points. People like to think that the objective wins the games. Only on the objectives where the objective is the boss do those win games, but other times it's the boss that actually wins the games, and I think that's a misconception people have all the time on a lot of maps. And then not drafting red's another big thing. People think that for some reason Artanis is a great tank. Artanis is not a tank, he's a bruiser. So it's also about knowing your classes.
Yeah, one thing I noticed from watching some of the games recently, the dual warrior comp seems to be a fairly prevalent strategy with the pros, and they almost have just like one serious damage dealer in the black, like a Li Ming or a Vala almost trying to carry the damage. I almost find whenever that happens in my unranked or ranked games, we're lacking damage. Is it because we can't trust our damage dealer to do enough damage? Like it seems like if you go a little too heavy on the front line, you're lacking the damage to close out.
Now, doing it between a coordinated team and doing it versus Hero League are 2 different strategies, like altogether. If we're talking Hero League, you can do a double tank, but you definitely need to make sure that you have heavy damage behind those two tanks, because for like a double tank and a double healer with a single like carry like Li Ming or Vala, you have to have everybody attacking the same target, and that does never ever work in Hero League ever.
The number of times I see, don't attack the tank or focus medic.
Or focus Morales, and it's terrible. But those kind of comps, I think a big thing that also people try to do is they try to mimic what the pros are doing, and then try to do exactly what they see in Hero League. You can't do that because in the competitive world and in the pro scene, they're on comms and they're talking and they're rotating through all of their stuff to maximize everything or minimize the damage in every way. You can't do that in Hero League. You can't, because there's no coordination.
But Shiz, what if I saw McIntyre on stream? I'm trying to mimic what he's doing. Huh? What about that?
Oh my gosh.
I gotta say though, part of the fun of watching esports and the fact that it's a video game we're playing, it is fun to go home and emulate their play and try to do things that you saw them do on stream.
You can definitely try to do what one person did. And, like, for example, Tassadar and his amazing walls that he had done so many times, or the ETC stage dives. Those are things that are possible in Hero League. Like, you don't need, like, to be on comms for that. But the problem is people are trying to take, instead of emulating, like, what one person did and, like, trying to be like, hey, I can try to figure out where I can do that. You know, they're all retreating. I can stage dive in and then, you know, slide to my team, and then, you know, we can secure all the kills that way. They're like, hey guys, I'm going to go do this, and then I'm going to do it like halfway across the map, and then I expect you guys to carry me through this, you know, so...
Yeah, it's definitely a different beast, that's for sure. I mean, like I said, in general, you don't see as much of the double warrior comp in ranked and unranked, like we were saying there, because you do run out of the damage a little bit. But,
you just can't focus it in Hero League. That's the biggest.
So that means that if you're going single tank, you're kind of losing out on a lot of the potential warriors you could use, right? And that begs the question: are there enough solo tanks in the game? Because really, I don't know. My count is there's maybe 3.
There are 3. There are 3 with a possible 4 solo tanks in the game.
All right, so go over with me, Shiz.
So you got Muradin, and you got ETC.
Warrior. Yeah.
Muradin and ETC are the 2 best tanks in their own respective rights. And the reason that the 2 best tanks in the world is Muradin can't die. If you play Muradin right, you should never die unless you're peeling for your team because your team did something wrong or you did something wrong. That's the only way Muradin should really ever die. He doesn't really even need heals. I mean, the only thing that hurts him is he can burn mana really quick. ETC is the best peeler in the game, bar none. There's no better peeler or whatsoever in the game. He's got one of the best. He's got 2 amazing ults. One is like an absolute game changer, which is Mosh. Stage Dive gives him global presence, and Stage Dive is making a huge comeback in the pro scene in ways like where I think it was mainly Stage Dived picked.
Why do you guys think that? Is it just because it's too easy to interrupt these days?
I think that's where it's getting to. There's too many counters to it. So what people are end up doing is they may get 1 or 2 good moshes off. And the other thing is during that time, ETC's completely vulnerable. He can just take the damage right then and there. So he's easily can be focused. And things like Uther have fallen off the meta because people can do so much AoE damage now, and and Uther's a single target healer, and he's bursty. So that it doesn't fit in the meta, and you need healers that can almost AoE heal. That's why you see things like Brightwing, and you see things like Ariel, and you see things like Malfurion, because Malfurion can essentially heal his whole team through his healing in the HOTS, and he can just keep putting them out.
It's funny how much stuff changes in a year, too. Like, I mean, last year, our healers that we were looking at, it was almost Rhaegar Uther exclusively in the competitive scene. Now you're looking at Ariel, Brightwing, Malfurion. It's a bit of a flip.
I know.
One of the great things about
Rhaegar's
HOTS is they
now,
do...
Like,
yeah, like those Ancestrals used to be so clutch, you don't see them nearly as... I mean, you see Rhaegar occasionally, but he's not nearly as powerful as he used to be. So that's Muradin and ETC. So those tier 1 tanks then, I guess?
Those are the... I would almost say Muradin's tier S. As if for tank, I would almost say... Well, they are tier 1, but I would say Muradin's a lot better because...
Of survivability?
The survivability, and survivability is key. I mean, even if you're out of mana and you can get in there and just smack face and get out safely, That's better than anything.
Yeah, the great thing about Muradin, too, is he just gets out of the battle for like 10, 15 seconds. He's healed right back up against you, not wasting the mana of your healer.
Yeah, 60% heals, in 5 seconds, and, he's right back in. And then the thing that makes Muradin, or ETC, like I said, is he's one of the greatest peelers. He's got great dive. He's got game-changing ults. So that he's got CC, and they both have CC built into their kits as baseline, which is absolutely amazing. So they can dive the back line freely, stun that person, and have the team focus that person. But your third, and your kind of like your B ranks, is Johanna. She's just very tanky, but she has no way to initiate. She has no stuns minus her ult, so that really hinders her. But I mean, she is tanky as hell, but she's not even as tanky as Muradin. Muradin's more tanky than Johanna, and Johanna was supposed to be the tank of all tanks.
And you know what's kind of funny? I mean, like a few weeks ago, I used to see Johanna still all over the place, but now that the group stages are over, it seems like everyone is just prioritizing Muradin and ETC.
Yeah. I mean, they've got an escape. They have a way to dive in, both through Muradin's jump. He can go straight over walls, which is amazing for escaping. You have ETC with slide, which is absolutely amazing. He's got his knockback as well. Johanna has none of that. She's got condemn. That's about the best thing. And then a punish after a condemn. It takes 2 spells to do two spells to barely do what one of them costs for 1 spell.
Yeah,
so
it's a bit more soft CC, I guess you could call it.
Yeah.
CC. So who's the fourth then? I'm kind of interested to see who your idea is for the fourth here.
Tyrael.
Almost a name. Tyrael, okay.
Tyrael is the best dive tank in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like a pseudo tank / support, because all he does is he's pretty much there to help his team secure those kills, and whoever is going to be the diver, whether it be Greymane, Illidan, Kerrigan. You're doing a double warrior with maybe a Chen. Chen could be a solo tank, but I don't feel like he's that. I think he's just a fat Illidan.
I had a great game as a solo tank Chen. Like I was the solo tank Chen. I think it was.
I watched that
today.
game. It was the first time you ever got a. Oh, you're not talking about your cheerleague game.
No. It wasn't a cheerleague game. I played today, and the team we came up against, it was just unranked draft, and it was a 5-man stack, and they picked 4 mages. So they picked Chromie, Kael'thas, Li Ming, who am I missing? There's another mage, Jaina, and then Lunara. They played 5 just huge bursts, and I went as Chen. That's what I went. Grounding Brew. And we had a standard comp. I can't remember exactly who it was, but it was just, Chen.
Who was your healer?
Malfurion was our healer. But we picked Mal first, right, before we knew this was happening. But we had Malfurion. It just worked out. So they're so squishy, right? The picks you could do with the keg, and once they burned all their initial bursts, it was just done and over with, right? So it was a pretty fun game, just rolling around in my keg, just picking them off and such. But yeah, we stomped them pretty easily. Shows you that, they had huge damage numbers. All their damage numbers were all way above ours, but the fact is they didn't have any health pool that kind of hurt them in the end. So
Illidan would have been my best friend.
Yeah. Well, at the end we were like, does anyone have Illidan or Nova? And they're like, no, we don't play them or whatever. It was on ranked draft, right? So, but hey, it worked and it was fun. So
Going back to the warrior bit, I've actually seen a lot of Dahaka recently.
Dahaka's making a comeback in the meta because mount speeds are slower, and he's becoming a really good bruiser. People, I think, or at least the pros are, they're figuring out how to play with Dahaka to make him viable. We first saw it in Korea, though, a couple months ago, and what they did for their combo is it was a double warrior combo. It was ETC, Dahaka, followed by some other CC and burst. So essentially it went ETC slide in, Dahaka drag back, lock that person in, and they died right there. Like, it was a guaranteed pick. And Dahaka can be anywhere on the map, which makes him absolutely great for the globals. So he can fight other globals point on point. He can self-heal himself. He's not really mana taxing. He's got 2 viable ults. Adaptation actually saw some play, and I think Isolation's the other one. They're both Adaptation. Actually, I think one. It wasn't Fnatic. It was one other team. I think it was maybe Dignitas in one of their games. It allowed them just to walk through and destroy the other team because of Adaptation, along with his self-healing. He was nigh unkillable. So that's why he's making a comeback, because people are actually figuring out how to play him. And he's very viable. He's just not a solo tank.
So the big question here is, boys, is this a problem? Having just two kind of upper tier tanks that are hotly contested,
Yes.
especially in competitive, and not having anything else. And then the next question is, how do we fix it? Do we make other people tanky, or do we nerf the existing?
Make other people tankier, or at BlizzCon release nothing but amazing solo healers and solo tanks.
I'm hearing a lot of rumblings.
And then you do
might be released.
Yeah, and then you turn around and then you make triple bans a thing. But we're getting to that point. We have such a large hero pool in the game where triple bans might become relevant, but they cannot do it yet.
Would make the problem even worse, though, because then you can potentially ban out everyone.
Well, no. What I'm saying,
first round, Muradin and ETC ban. Oh, great. Now what?
When you have 5 or 6 viable, or like I want to say like 5, 6, maybe 7 viable solo tanks, at that point, I think you'll be okay, because you're not just going to ban out just tanks. I mean, you could, but
yeah,
but usually in drafting, or at least in smart drafting, you're usually securing your healer or your tank first. So there's that. But instead, like, a lot of people are talking about nerfing Muradin, and I think that's absolutely the wrong thing to do, because then what you're going to do is you're going to turn Muradin into a bruiser. Muradin is an exceptional tank. What they need to do is fix things like how Leo was. Leo was a fantastic tank at one point. He was a wave clear tank, and he was tanky too. So was Johanna. She was tanky, and she had great wave clear. That's what made them so relevant in their spots. Muradin didn't see as much prevalence. Those are just the small adjustments that they need to make. You'd have then 4 tanks that are completely viable.
Yeah, I still like taking Leo into a double tank, like versus a double tank comp, because the Drain Hope build can be so strong. That being said, if you whiff on that Drain Hope, you feel it.
You feel it, yeah.
No healing.
Yeah, you can get huge damage numbers as Leo and be really tanky if they've got like a Diablo and a Muradin on their team, for instance.
Yeah, but I know.
But yeah, that doesn't make him a solo tank. I understand that.
Yeah, I mean, he can solo tank, but it's just. I don't look at Leo as a solo tank unless you're like, yeah, we're gonna have a tank that's gonna just die for our team a lot, and that's usually what Leo does. He just dies for his team so that way they can do whatever their comp is meant to do. Stall an objective is usually the thing that he's meant to do.
What do you think you'd do to someone to make them more tanky? Is it just a matter of getting more health, higher health regen, some sort of self heal in their kit? Like how would you do that even?
Revert what you did to Leo and Johanna. Put them back when they first came out. It's that simple. Like, yeah, you're gonna make them some of the greatest wave clear tanks in the game. I understand that completely.
Yeah, Leo's damage was way too high back then.
Whose?
Leo, his damage.
His wave clear was amazing. I mean, maybe tweak it a little bit, but make him more healthy. Make him come back to life faster. Things like that. Johanna, give her a stun somehow. Somehow give her a stun in her kit. Let her punish be the stun. Maybe that would be too powerful. Or make it a huge ass slow. I mean, it's already a slow, but make it a huge ass slow.
I just have a feeling, because Blizzard's kind of hesitant to change the baseline kits very much, that they'd probably just introduce more solo-y tanks with that CC if that's what they're trying to fill with their roles and such. I can't see them, say like taking off Joanna's Q or something and turning into a stun, for instance, like a hard stun.
Maybe not a stun, but just make it
or whatever.
A ridiculously long slow. I mean,
well for Jo, you could put her D on a lower cooldown too. For instance, that would make her a lot tankier.
That would make her super tanky, but she would almost go nigh unkillable. I think I think she rides a fine line between like nigh unkillable, like Illidan does. Like Illidan he walks that very fine line. Like you tweak a number by like 1%, and he's borderline OP, if not OP. Yeah, and then if you do it the other way, he's borderline underpowered, like completely useless.
Well, we saw it happen with Kerrigan not too long ago too, because she got her numbers buffed, and that buffs her shields, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, she's the top melee assassin.
Yeah.
And she is powerful. Definitely on some maps.
So, but I mean, you can do things to do this. I mean, Arthas is another one that you can do. He's got the self-healing. I feel like Arthas is kind of, but the problem is with a lot of the tanks is they're niche tanks. They're not like generalized tanks. ETC, Johanna, and Muradin are your generalized tanks, but Muradin and ETC take prevalence because they have a way to get out of anything.
Yeah, it seems like the general sentiment that the lacking role that we currently have. I mean, a lot of people always cry for healers, more healers in the game, but I think the solo tank is where we need to see a couple heroes hopefully announced.
They need to stop making bruisers. What they need to do. We have as many bruisers as we have freaking assassins in the game now.
Well, it's crazy. I mean, Muradin and ETC, I think they're both release heroes, and Joanna has been out for a year and a half or so now, at least.
About a year.
Yeah, we haven't seen a true tank come out for a while now, so it'd be nice. I mean, there is talk about characters like Varian Rin and such coming in that might be a warrior, but again, maybe they're just gonna be bruisers. Who knows until we see their.
If they make him a bruiser, I'll be so mad. I will be so mad.
Double bruiser meta, just.
Yeah,
maybe that's the way to do it, though, right?
Yeah,
like maybe double bruisers. Nothing wrong with that.
But then you're getting rid of what's the point of having a warrior? I mean,
just make everyone bruisers.
Five-man bruiser team.
It's going to turn into you got bruisers now, so then it'll be now we need tanky assassins because everybody's just running bruisers, and then that's the new meta.
You ban Tychus, you take 4 bruisers and a Brightwing to heal them all up. That's
oh my gosh.
That could be the new meta, just 4 bruisers. How are you going to kill them?
Yeah, wait till they start making ranged bruisers, more Zaryas.
Yeah, I think that's more of a one. I don't think we'll see many of those for the near future anyways.
I don't know.
Oh, Reaper might be something like that. He's ranged, but he'd be pretty tanky.
Reaper
I don't play Overwatch, so I can't really give insight into that.
I thought he's more like everyone says he's so similar to Vala, right? Like with his little ultimate thing that he does there. So
yeah, he is a lot like
I'd
Vala.
see him be more of an assassin. It's tough. I mean, the nice thing about Overwatch is if you take characters over from Overwatch, they do have their traditional roles too, and you can take their assassins. They're going to be assassins in this game. You take tanks from that game, they'll be tanks in this game. So it makes it a little bit easier to figure out who's going to be what. Maybe they'll take who I want to see from Overwatch, and I don't know if you guys play a lot of Overwatch, is Reinhardt. That huge guy who puts up this huge shield in front of him and has a massive hammer and just swings it around. I think he'd be a pretty cool tank to have. But I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I bet you we're going to get at least one Overwatch character announced. We're probably going to get 3 or 4, maybe even 5 characters previewed coming up. So I'm
going to go with 5 characters. I'm going to go with 5 characters.
Oh.
I think that's what they did last time, and they released them in 2s. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess you just really can't touch Muradin, right?
I told you, homeboy, you can't touch this.
I was looking for an excuse to play that. I got a couple more MC Hammer bumpers. Like I said, with Hammer Time, I gotta play some of those this week. So
I think I'm going to disagree with everyone, mainly Reddit. I don't think that you need to nerf Muradin. I think you need to buff your other tanks. Do what they did with Rhaegar. Like, they buffed Rhaegar, and they were like, oh my gosh, Rhaegar's amazing. And then they were like, oh, let's tone him down a little bit. And then they nerfed him into the ground, and people were like, well...
That was a little bit, right?
Yeah, they destroyed him and made him like a withered baby of himself. And then they were like, all right, well, we'll buff Mouth now. And then it's one of those things where they buff somebody, and then they nerf him, and then they buff him, and then they nerf him, and then... So we'll see who the next healer is.
Blizzard, it feels like they have a pretty set strategy. You want to cycle through the meta to make sure that certain heroes are more fresh, and some will taper off. And I mean, that makes sense from a sales strategy, too. If you want people buying every hero, trying all the heroes, keeping the game fresh, that's one way to do it. It's frustrating as hell. If you're like a Muradin main or something, and who knows, a month from now he might be the worst tank in the game.
Mains are like must be on cloud 9 because I mean Muradin is like god tier. Like
King Caffeine, is that you?
Okay, well, we've been talking a ton about Muradin. Let's go over the Muradin specific strategy. We've been kind of talking around it, but one of the segments we've had in the strategy is to talk actually about Muradin. So let's talk about his kit in general. I know if you've been playing this game for any length of time, you probably know Muradin's kit pretty much inside and out, but we'll just go over it briefly for those who don't. So his trait, and this is one of those more controversial traits, actually, I think, is Second Wind. So he restores 112 health per second when you have not taken damage for 4 seconds, and when below 40% health, gets increased to 224 health per second. So, like I said before, this takes a huge burden off your healer. After you get back out of the engage, it's amazing because you can just heal right up, no problem. You don't have to worry about your healer burning mana on you. So that's one of the big things there. And so that's the second win. And of course, we'll talk about his talents in a second, but his first level talent is the one that kind of buffs that as well, which is an issue. Okay, so his Q is Stormbolt, and Stormbolt has is 60 mana. It's got a 10-second cooldown, and this is where you throw the hammer, dealing 242 damage to the first enemy hit, stunning it for 1.5 seconds. So there's the hard stun engage we talked about. On his W, we got Thunderclap, 50 mana, cooldown 8 seconds, deals 211 damage, and slows enemies by 25% for 2.5 seconds. And then finally, his escape, or his engage, I guess, too. Dwarf Toss on his E, 55 mana, cooldown 10 seconds, leap to a target location, dealing 130 damage to enemies on landing. So, I mean, like, you look at his kit up and down, it's got engage, disengage, crowd control all over it. So, I mean, what do you guys see is, like, the issue here? Where is his OP coming from? Is it his second wind? Is it his Stormbolt? Is it Thunderclap? A little bit of everything?
It's everything. They when they released Muradin, they're like, what do we need in a tank? We need somebody who can get in and get out. Well, they gave him that. They gave him Dwarf Toss. They're like, all right, well, we need a way for him to engage when he does his stuff and lock down somebody. Oh, they turned around and they gave him Stormbolt. And then they were like, hey, he doesn't really have any damage. We need to give him something. Let's give him an AoE smash that does decent damage, but we'll build an entire freaking build around this where it actually becomes really good damage. So they gave him Thunderclap. And then they're like, hey, we need to, expand on that and maybe not, make it damagey, but like a way for him to peel for his players. Let's make it an AA reduction. I mean, and then they're like, well, as a tank, he's got to have that survivability. So let's give him health regeneration after 5 seconds.
Yeah, and just putting that all together makes the ultimate tank. They literally were like, what would make the greatest tank ever? But not like so overpowered that like he carries the team, but he's playmaker. He's a playmaker. And they were like, we'll give him this. And they were like, they scratched their heads and they were like, well, we haven't done heroics yet. Let's do heroics. And then they were like, well, he's tanky. Let's make him even tankier. Let's give him Avatar. You just don't die in Avatar. And I mean, if you guys don't remember or haven't been playing along, Avatar used to stun every time he AA'd. And with a Morales doing stim drone on a Avatar, you literally locked somebody out of the fight in the entire time he was stim drone. And they were like, hey, well, let's give him something where we'll give him a playmaking thing. I know, let's call it Haymaker, where we can completely get rid of somebody from the fight. Let me dive in on that squishy stun position and knock them into our team. So are you seeing a lot of Haymaker at all? I mean, pretty much like 90% of the time I'm seeing Avatar taken. What's the position that you want to take a Haymaker in?
Avatar's good in every situation. Haymaker's good if you're kind of lacking deeps or they have a line that's hard to get to, like a back line, and you need to blow up a certain person. So
I think it's good if they have mages like Jaina or KT where they don't have that much mobility, right? You jump past or you jump over them, knock them back. One. Yeah, Chromie, and then they're into your team. How can they get away? Well, they can't.
Pre-10, or if Malfurion's already bursted Twilight Dream, throwing Malfurion back into the team.
I guess
Ariel's
in a lot of ways,
great one.
It kind of parallels, say, like Chen's Keg, because you can jump over them and then knock them back, right? And that's pretty much what you use it for in general. I mean, I guess there's a little bit more to Keg with zoning, and you can steal bosses and such with Keg. But Haymaker, like you said, is a bit more niche. Is there any time you wouldn't take Avatar too? Like if Avatar seems like the safe pick. I mean, the only thing that comes to mind
when
would
you
be
need
like
damage,
or if you're going up against like a Tychus or a Leo, maybe.
If you've got like, we'll say ETC and Muradin, and ETC's got Prog Rock already done, his entire talent's done, and he's already putting out the heals, and you've got, we'll say, an Ariel, and you've got a Lunara behind you, and she's just literally spamming stuff out because you have two of the best tanks already. Haymaker works.
Okay.
So I think the only detrimental cases that, if you took avatars, like Shiz said, if you didn't have enough damage, or like Tychus with that's the stuff, because that will heal him more. And I think Leorix also heals for the more damage it does, right? So if you popped Avatar, you would actually heal them more. But I think those are the only cases, really.
Yeah, even that being said, in those cases, you're still getting more health. So they might be burning you down a little bit faster because they have percent-based damage. But still, you're still getting the health out of it, so you are still a little bit extra survival regardless. It's not like you're dying faster using Avatar in those cases. Okay, so I've seen a lot of good Muradins, but I've also seen some horrible Muradins out there, too, in some of my games. People just take them because, they hear, oh, hey, he's a great tank or whatever. What makes a bad Muradin a bad Muradin? To me, the first thing is if they can't hit those storm bolts.
Dying is probably the biggest one. I mean, not landing your storm bolts, yeah, that sucks. But the thing that makes and breaks Muradins for me is
popping Avatar before you run into the fight too.
Save Avatar for that last minute. Like, I'm at 15% health. I need to get some health ASAP. Avatar gives health to you. It really does. And you're super tanky, and that'll give your healer enough time to get in. The other thing is Avatar, the biggest reason to play Muradin is because he self-heals. So don't die as Muradin. Don't be afraid to go in and then do your stuff. And if you're getting focused hard, jump out of the fight and then turn around and wait for your heal to go off, and then go right back in. And then the other thing that people like to do is, for some reason, is you have a ranged stun. You have Stormbolt. Okay? Unless you're jumping in to stun a certain person for everybody to follow up on, and you're going to lock and kill that person, don't use your jump in as a way to fight, unless you know you're going to it's going to be off of cooldown for you to be able to jump out of the fight.
Sounds because like Fade from chat pretty much read your mind there. He's saying the exact same thing in chat there. So,
oh, there we go. See, Fade knows exactly what he's talking about. But yeah, save that disengage, because a lot of Muradins are like, yo, I'm going to jump in and I'm going to do some crazy, oh, crap, I got to run away, but I have no way to get out of this fight. So that's another thing. The other thing, too, is don't go into fight with 0 mana unless you absolutely have to, and you have to peel for your team. You're trying to get your team out of there because you're super tank and you possibly can get enough mana to jump out maybe later. But peeling for your tank, but I see a lot of Muradins going with 0 mana, and you're like, oh, why are you going with no mana? You're absolutely useless to me right now. Your whole kit's so. Yeah.
Yeah. One other bad thing I see too is Muradins going in feeling like they're assassins. You set up the kill, you peel for your team, let the assassins do the damage. You do some damage as Muradin, but you don't do a ton. And overextending.
Muradin at 16 can put out some great damage. I've seen him top meters.
Yeah, but still, you don't jump in and just start going nuts without supporting your team too, right? You do have a role as Muradin. It's to set up the kills, not to really, do the damage, carry the damage for the team, right? So
the only way you do that is if you're picking Muradin to be a bruiser. That's the only time you go that build. Absolutely. If you were Muradin and Chen, you both are tanky as hell. You both can dive in. You both can disrupt. And you want to put that damage on the back line when you jump in. That would be acceptable to play a bruiser-esque, tanky Muradin, and make sure they don't have a Tychus,
Just please, Muradin's there. Make sure you're peeling for the poor assassins in the back. You do have a good.
If you're both diving in like that, your whole team should be aware that they need to follow up, because they probably don't have a tank. Yeah. In most of those situations, they probably have an ETC, but that ETC can't just dive in and mosh right there, because you got 2 of the best tanks for killing and chasing and kiting, wrecking their back line. So he's probably going to come in and try to mosh you, and then usually you have ways to get out. So.
Yeah, I guess kind of what I'm saying is when you're a tank in general, especially if you're solo tanking, you're kind of dictating those engages, dictating the pace of the fight, and just to make sure that you do have that spatial awareness of where the rest of your team is. Because way too many times I see Muradins get in way too deep. I know they can get out and such, but if they get far ahead of the team, right, it makes it a little bit more difficult to actually secure those kills and everything too, and be safe as a backline as well. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
So what's the best way to counter Muradin? Now we've talked a little bit about how to play as him. What about counter Muradin?
Tychus.
We've seen a lot of Tychus in competitive play too. His win rate hasn't been the greatest, but I think that might just be a statistical aberration because there's only been a small handful of games. But
Tychus is a great way to do it, and don't focus Muradin. Don't Muradin. Like there used to be a flowchart when Johanna came out, and it was like, is there other things to do besides possibly attacking Johanna? If the answer is yes, you don't attack Johanna. The same applies for Muradin now in this situation. Like, you don't want to be hitting Muradin unless you have a ton of focus fire and burst, because the amount of burst that you're going to need to get through him, your healer most likely will have popped their ult to save that person. Ariel Crystal Aegis is 9 out of 10 times going to come out. Ancestral's going to come out. He's probably going to dwarf toss away and heal himself back up. It's wave of force from Lily can be used, roots, anything. So you gotta kind of just be like, all right, we got to deal with Muradin. He's going to be an actual pain in the ass, but you got to kill everything that's around him. And once you do that, then Muradin's irrelevant. Muradin can't do anything.
Yeah, one piece of advice I have is if you are in a situation where you're bursting down Muradin for whatever reason, he's getting to low health, is to save your stun so you can time the stuns to finish him off so he can't dwarf toss out of there.
Does stop him midair too.
That's true, but what I mean is like make sure your stun's not on cooldown. Like you don't stun him when he's mid health, you stun him when he's low health, so you can stun him and finish him off, as opposed to stunning him, giving him time to get out of the stun and then jump out. Because like when you said
Avatar.
Yeah, or Avatar. That's true too. Is just timing those stuns, I think, is very crucial with Muradin too. Like you shouldn't really be bursting him down, but obviously there's cases where you're going to be killing Muradin anyways, right? So that'd be my piece of advice, anyhow.
The best thing
funny. It's so funny when Muradin's trying to get out, and then he realizes there's a mouth root behind him or something, and then he tries to jump. And it just catches him midair, and he's like, "Wait,
that unstoppable change made a huge difference, actually." So.
It honestly did. It made Muradin from godlike to just from a pure like god point to just like a demigod. He's not like full god mode, but he's like halfway there.
Yeah, we'll get just jumping out of situations was so much easier now that you have that potential to get stunned in midair or like halfway through the jump. And next thing you know, you're stuck there and you're dead. So
I miss unstoppable Muradin with his stupid stun and Avatar. Please bring that back so I can go.
Don't bring that back, please.
No, please. I love Muradin so.
Well, the problem with the mini stun on the AAs is you could cancel a lot of like ultimate animations or just casting it all. Like if you hear that about to go for a mosh pit, you just tap him, and it's on 9-second cooldown. You know, like it was a little unfair. I think having that AA stun every second.
Absolutely not. Muradin was underpowered. He needs to be brought back to his former glory.
Shiz is on the let's buff Muradin bandwagon. You're probably the only one.
I don't want them to nerf him because I have a feeling because Blizzard has a thing of listening to fanboys and being like, oh, you guys find this unfair. Well, let's destroy what makes him him, and then
I'm with you.
He's not even there.
Buff others, right?
I mean,
especially in this situation.
Looking at the other MOBAs that are around, like League of Legends or Dota, right? So Dota goes with the philosophy: if everything's super powerful, right, then it's balanced because everything is super powerful. Whereas League, it's like, oh, if this is strong, we're cutting it back, right? And it looks like Blizzard might go for that. If it's super strong, we're cutting it back.
I think they're trying to find a way where they can moderate it a little bit because they'll be like, this is powerful, so we're going to nerf it a little bit, but we're going to try to buff this to make this more appealing. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Well, I feel like the way that Blizzard seems to usually handle it is it's almost like you slowly start flushing down the whirlpool, right? Like you're up the top of the world and you slowly start whirling down. The next thing you know, you're in the bottom of the toilet. And then they take that bottom sludge out of the bottom of the toilet and they like to throw it back on top every once in a while and kind of keep the cycle going. Like I said, that's what we saw with Malf and now like Rare's down the bottom. But Yeah, I mean, they do like to rework heroes near the bottom, so maybe that's what they'll be doing in the near future. Maybe they'll take some of these lower win rate tanks and try and make them a bit more tanky, fill that role too. But I do think that it's going to be with the introduction of new heroes, to be honest with you.
What makes Muradin, I'm going to answer Twitch chat real quick. What makes Muradin such a great tank is he has everything that makes a tank great. He has a stun, which is great for engaging. He has a way to disengage, which makes him amazing as a tank because he can peel for his team if he needs to. He can stun and then get out or jump in to wherever the fight needs to be happening and get in the center of that. He has AoE damage, which is a form of wave clear. It may not be the greatest, but you can turn that into an AA reduction, which wrecks Illidan. He's a huge counter to Illidan, or anybody that wants to AA your back line. Vala, if you can get it on her. The other great thing, too, is it's great single target damage if you do that. You can also go in to make him even more tankier, which allows him to heal off of every person he does it to, which is amazing. It's a lot of heals, actually, believe it or not. And then all of his talent choices amplify it. And then the other thing that makes him so amazing is Second Wind. On level 1, he gets Third Wind, which allows him to heal for 60% of his health in 4 or 5 seconds. So if you're low, you disengage, you jump out. 4 or 5 seconds later, you're at 60%. You can walk right back into the fight, jump back in, stun somebody, disrupt, do your whole thing. The only time you really can't do that is when you get low on mana, which is probably the biggest thing for Muradin. I feel like the reason Muradin has such a low win rate is there's not as much coordination going on. If you had people following up with every person that Muradin stunned when he dives in and everybody were to focus that, if you watch the pros, that person usually gets a ton of damage where they either A, have to disengage, or they die. That's the problem. And Hero League, there's no coordinations. It's just pure chaos. And if people follow up where the Muradin goes, you usually secure that kill. Avatar is amazing because it makes him super survivable and super tanky. Like, he almost doesn't need heals. Like, the healer can put majority of their focus somewhere else unless Muradin is getting focused. That's why. Because people don't know how to play Muradin, and the reason why his win rate's so meh is because people don't know how to play against Muradin in the chaos in Hero League. It's Hero League. If everyone was on the same page, then you would have a lot more. As soon as they introduce mics, you're going to see a huge, vast difference in people's or heroes' win rates. I think there's going to be a huge influx of heroes that are really good that go bad, and then a lot that are bad that are going to become good. It's like Medivh. Medivh is amazing in competitive scene, but he sucks in Hero League.
Yeah, I think Shiz hit the nail on the head there. Like, it is a coordination issue. Like, you look like a tank like ETC who's got a better win rate than, say, Muradin. I think his initiate is a little bit louder too when he, like, say if he slides in, blows someone back to try and get a pick.
More aggro.
Yeah, it does. Like, the louder plays are more obvious on a team where you're not on comms, right? And I think that's what it is. Like Muradin, it does take a little bit more coordination to, like, go in, hit your target, and try and stun lock him and secure that kill, I think. And that's the big issue. It is more competitive or more like higher level play, I think, that Muradin is like the overpowered bit. And that's one challenge that Blizzard has too, because you're not just balancing it for the high level play, you're balancing it like across the board. You got to balance it for the bronze leaguers, the diamond leaguers, the masters, the competitive scene, and make sure that you do it like effectively, right? That's one reason they said, okay, we're gonna take away his unstoppable trait, and when he does his jump. I remember the reasoning behind that is because that they figured that was a higher level skill cap where the pros took more advantage of that than, say, like the bronze, silver, gold leaguers. They took advantage of the unstoppable, and they figured that, okay, well, that'll nerf him in the higher leagues, but won't affect him as much in the lower leagues, because he does have a sub 500 win rate right now, and like people might look at that and be like, okay, he's not overpowered. It's not like he's like Samuro with a 65% win rate too, right? So
yeah, the reason why ET's so meta too is he's got a lot of Muradin's kit, not as prevalent, but he has a game-changing ult that literally wins games late game. If he lands a perfect mosh or a great mosh, securing 2 kills, hell, even 2 kills is all you need generally. Post 20, and you win the game right there.
And like I said, it's nice and loud. everyone sees the mosh pit going off. Like, you might all be running away. He might be doing a defensive mosh pit, and everyone always turns around and comes back to the mosh pit, right?
Muradin's ults aren't game-changing. ETC's mosh is game-changing. Stage dive we saw can be game-changing because he can dive in and then disrupt the whole team. Yeah. He's got game-changing ults, which allow the team, even in the midst of chaos, to help secure those kills. Muradin he helps his team. He helps himself stay alive so his team can continue to do what they do. But in a chaos thing, people are just going to go in every split ways. But if that's just my reasoning right there. The game-changing ult wins.
Oh, ETC too. Like, you could be behind a couple levels, you could be down in the game, and then you land a nice mosh, you get a team wipe. That could be game right there, right? You can turn the tables. Whereas it's a little bit more difficult, I think, as an Muradin to do that kind of game changing, come from behind, just like by yourself too, right? So I think that's a lot of reasons why ETC does a bit better there. But I mean, like, you talk to any pros, they'll say the exact same thing too. Muradin and ETC are the top ones because of their CC, their engaged survivability. Just it's second to none. So.
Yeah, okay. Global. Yeah, sorry, I'm totally trying to help him out right now because he's got a lot of questions. Global presence. And you can do it to disrupt their entire team because it does cause a slow. You can slide in on a specific target if you want and lock them out, allow your team to follow up, secure that kill. Best example I can say is watch Denial Esports on Tomb of the Spider Queen. I believe they were playing Please Buff Arthas. They were able to use a global stage dive, secured 3 kills, turned around, and allowed them to win the game from there. Go watch that game if you haven't seen it. It's amazing. You'll see an amazing stage dive and why it's actually gone up. And plus, there's a lot of counters to stage dive right now. Li Ming's got a 20-second way to interrupt it every second, so there's that. Bright Wing's very popular in the meta. There's Ariel.
Interrupting Mosh, right?
Yeah. Yes, Ariel can disrupt it. So all of the big healers have a way to interrupt it. Twilight Dream from Malfurion if you wanted to do that. There's just too many ways to counter Mosh right now. So stage dive is more of the way to go now, and people are figuring out how to use stage dive well.
Yeah, especially the big maps like Warhead Junction, you'd never see Mosh Pit taken. It's just too powerful having that more of a global presence with your tank, being able to jump in and just change the fight. The globals in general seem to be
global is ever since the changes to the mounts, the minions having more health. Doing more damage to structures and everything, it has definitely gone to a split siege way. You see most of the time that teams are actually split pushing while doing an objective. The reason behind that is because one person, like I'm saying, Curse Hollow, if you're bottom lane and it's up top, and we'll say as a Gera, or a Sylvanas, you contribute more by pushing that lane out or soaking 2 lanes or trying to soak 2 lanes than being there at the objective, because by the time you get there, that objective should have already been decided unless you have a poke team and their whole objective is to stall out. But in that case, if your team is a poke comp, you should just push out your lane even further because you're Zagara and you can push and bully whoever's staying in there with you, and you'll secure that fort, and there's no one there going to interrupt you. So they have a choice: either come stop you and give up the tribute, or sit there and allow you to push them out and put them in a very bad spot. So it's which lose do we want? And they have to choose the lesser of the 2 loses. That's why split pushing is so popular.
It is tough to get your team on board with that, though.
It works in coordinated. Yep,
if you're 100%. In team league, because sometimes you're like, hey, I'm just gonna go soak these 2 lanes. Let's give up this trib. Sometimes they just don't listen to you. Everyone goes in, and it's a 4v5. They get wiped, and then you've negated the benefit, right? Like one of my favorite strategies is, as you guys probably know, is on like Infernal Shrines. If you have like a Zool or a strong wave pushing, a wave
Zool
clear,
is an amazing person on Infernal Shrines.
You can almost ignore the first objective. You just take your Zool, you soak 2 lanes. If they don't address it, you're getting a huge lead. You might be even pushing in a tower or 2. And you know what? That first Punisher, what's he going to do? He's going to jump over the wall, get burned down. He might get a tower, might get a wall out of it. The benefit is huge. Yeah, unless they have a Sylvanas. And that is a very strong push with the Punishers. The first Punisher can do a lot of damage, work all the way to the keep if you're not careful.
You should never get to the keep. If you have the first Punisher should get the wall. If you have a Sylvanas, you should get the fort. Second Punisher should get the fort. In a good coordinated team who's all on the same page. Third Punisher should get a fort and possibly the front wall, and then it's a stacking thing from there on out.
Okay, let's try and move along here. I mean, we're getting some great feedback from the chat. We're doing a really good job here, I think, kind of talking about these. But we've talked about these tanks incessantly. Let's just quickly go over Muradin's build. Because I think it's kind of important to talk about. We've talked about how to play him and everything, but maybe it's a good idea to talk about some of his talents and how to take those and in which situations too. So just quickly, level 1.
Third wind. Third wind, 100% every part of the way. It's what makes him so amazing because this is now a level 1 talent, and you get it at level 1, and there's not really that much to compete with it unless you're going DPS way. It's going to be third wind. If you're going a DPS route because you need more DPS or you're going for a bruiser, then it would be Perfect Storm. I don't think block works. There's just too many things in the meta where your tank's supposed to take the hits, so blocks, and you're so tanky, it doesn't even matter. Third wind's going to give you... take
block occasion. I disagree with it, just like you do. I think that typically the only time I ever see people take block usually is maybe against a hammer comp if they want to try and get that engaged. But third wind's just so strong.
If you got a hammer, it's a simple thing. Your team should all be on board. You got to kill the hammer. A hammer should be a top priority. So at that point, it should be you're out right outside of his range. You jump in, you stun him, and you have your CC lock him down. He should die.
Yeah,
he should.
The big thing is the coordination, right? And this is why I think Hammer does so well in uncoordinated play is that he is just hard to engage on.
Same with Butcher and same with Illidan. Yeah, those are the reasons why they thrive. And Nova, they thrive so well in chaos. And it becomes coordinated and your team's all on the same point. Listening to pings is huge. And communicating. If you even via chat, hey, we got to focus. If you see me jump in on the hammer, follow up with my on me, and believe it or not, most of the time they'll listen to you. You got to stay positive, even if it doesn't work the first time. Stay positive, motivate them. You'll secure the kill, and then you tell your team good job, and then it motivates your team to do better. But I don't think block is the right way to go at all.
No,
I think it's Perfect Storm and third win, 100% of the way, 90% of the time third win.
And speaking of going against a comp like a hammer comp where it's so centered around one hero, one thing I've noticed that's really helped when I've played against them is just quickly chatting with the team, okay, what's our strategy to engage? Who should be the first person to go in? And then everyone kind of looks to wait for that thing to happen. Maybe you've got
bait everybody out of Hammer's range when they siege up, beat them all out, and then engage outside of Hammer's range, making Hammer completely moot. Then Hammer's going to scream at her team to fight with inside of her, don't move, essentially fight around her, make it all about her. And then they either A, fall apart, or they listen to that. And then that's when you just start engaging the Hammer hard and focus the Hammer. The problem that makes it really hard is when people allow things like Hammer to get drafted with a Morales and an ETC. That makes it really hard to kill a Hammer at that point. And at that point, a lot of coordination has to go into effect.
Well, also, how many times do you see you have the hammer circle, then you have one person run in, they'll run out because they're low health. Next person runs in, they run out because they're low health. That doesn't help anything, right? That's what I'm saying. At first, at the beginning of the game, let's say you've got a Tyrande on the team, okay? You can say everyone, she's sieged up, watch for the Tyrande stun. When that goes out, everyone just jump on the hammer. That'll be the engage, the initiator, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe it's not always the ideal thing because if you're not on comms, you can't quickly make those decisions.
Poker's work too. Chromie is a hammer killer. So is Li Ming. Jaina is actually really good at it as well. You just got to wait for her to siege up before you put out your damage. The problem is people want to do the whole freaking Jaina combo. It's not about that. It's putting about your Blizzard and then your Frostbolt. Do those two on a hammer. Take the range at level 1. At 16, take the range. You're going to probably get hit a little bit. Take Frost Armor. Frost Armor is amazing. That'll save your life more than a ton. People, for some reason, ignore that talent completely. But against AAers, that does help you actually quite a bit. I'm not sure if it works against a hammer. I'm drawing a blank on exactly how that talent works.
But anyways, hammer again.
Yeah, wait. Why wouldn't it work? It would chill them as soon as they shoot you.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, so it would work. So then, but she's in siege, so it really wouldn't matter most of the time. But
I mean, it gives you your critical procs.
Yeah, but if you take the one where if they're chilled, they get rooted on the spot, that is a form of lockdown. So there's a lot of ways you could engage hammer, but we're getting so off track. We need to talk about level 4.
I know. You know what? I'm going to put a stop to this. Ready?
Hammer time.
Oh, man.
Yeah, we go full circle. We start talking about the brawl with hammer. We come back to hammer.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. So level 4. We won't go over all the details. Level 4. We've got Sledgehammer, Reverberation, Crowd Control, and Thunderburn.
Never Sledgehammer. Never Sledgehammer. Reverberation if they're a heavy AA team. Crowd Control is good if you just...
so maybe give a little details of what these talents are as you're talking about.
Okay, so Sledgehammer does 400 to minion structures, mercenaries, destroys 4 ammo from structures. You should never ever need that. You're not a Sylvanas. If you needed a Sylvanas, you should have drafted her, or a specialist, or someone who can siege really well to do that for you. You shouldn't have your tank doing that. It does work, but there's better talents in here that just make that talent irrelevant. So it's just there for appeal. Just ignore that talent altogether. You've got Reverberation. Attack speed from Thunderclap, instead of 25%, it goes back to its original 50, and the duration is from 2.5 to 3 seconds long. That is amazing. And the reason that's amazing is against AA teams like if you're going up against a Vala and a Hammer. Vala likes to sit next to Hammer, so if you can get both of them, you're going to reduce their attack speed, which means that they are not putting out as much damage onto you. It makes it destroys AA teams. It destroys Illidan. Illidan has Butcher too. Destroys Butchers, destroys Illidan, and the reason it destroys them is especially Illidan, is because for him to heal, he has to AA you, and if you're making his AA slower, he can't heal. So then he doesn't put out really good damage as it is. He's just more there to stay in your face and annoy the shit out of you and slowly kill you. So that's really good. You got Crowd Control. Each enemy hit by Thunderclap reduces his cooldown point by 0.75 seconds. It's flashy, looks nice on paper. I think there's better talents in here. You can make an argue for it. Like, it's up more. You can use it more. But I feel like between Reverberation and then the next one, it's just Thunderburn. Thunderclap leaves his own on the ground, exploding after 2 seconds, dealing a good amount of damage and applying a 25% slow. That is another form of CC. So now you have 2 forms of CC. You have your stun, and you have a 25% slow for 2.5 seconds. And it also reduces their AA. That is amazing. If you just need something because you don't know what to take because they're all mixed, that's my go-to talent, Thunderbird. Unless they have a huge AA'er like Illidan, Hammer, or Avala, and you know that you can get your Thunderclaps to hit next to them. That's when I would choose between those 2 talents. But Thunderburn is more generic. It's going to fit in every comp. It'll never be a bad choice. Reverberation is more comp specific.
Yeah.
So those are those.
I'm definitely in agreement. Reverberation and Thunderburn are the only 2 talents I'd ever take as well. It is a little like
class every.
Yeah, Thunderburn's the generic one. Reverberation's more the niche pick. If you have that melee assassin that's really working on that, or just if you need to get rid of that attack speed, the extra attack speed slow for whatever reason. But yeah, it demolishes Illidan, Butcher, anyone who's got that that self healing on the auto attack. So yeah, a Muradin and a Brightwing just delete Butcher so easily too. He just comes in, poly him, reduces attacks. He can't heal off his brand, and he's going nowhere. Same with an Illidan too. Like, it's a very hard counter having the Muradin Brightwing say combo. Okay, so yeah, another reason too I don't like the crowd control is because on level 7 you've got Iron Forge momentum. So why don't you take it away here, Shiz? Level 7 talents.
Level 7, we've got starting off Piercing Bolt. Storm Bolt now penetrates through his target and hitting additional target. That is good if you took at 1 the Storm Bolt, where it does increase damage every time you hit. That's the only time I would ever take that. Or if they've got like a double warrior and you're never going to be able to get to their or they got a very beefy front warrior that is peeling so well that you cannot stun their back line. Maybe I could make an exception for Piercing Bolt, where if you can line up your stars right, you can get the hit, and it's, and you can get the double stun, and then, dive in and then do what you need to get the follow-up. Or if a team's retreating, 2 people are retreating, which is very often, you could maybe land both of them, stun them both, dive in, thunderclap them, apply your slow, and you're golden. And you just now set up where you're securing 2 more kills. It's very niche. I only take it when I take the Stormbolt talent on level 1, but that's the only time, because then you're getting double the value off of your Stormbolts because it's not hitting 2 people. So you're now essentially, if you can do it every time, you're now getting 10. It's 10 damage, I believe. Correct? 10 damage. Yes, 10 damage now every time you can hit 2 of them. So it builds up really quick. You're doubling your speed on it. Landing momentum. Increase your movement speed by 25% for 4 seconds upon landing for Dwarf Toss. It sounds really good on paper.
I never see any use for it, to be honest.
Yeah, it sounds amazing on paper, like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna, have this engage, disengage, and then I'm gonna have this movement speed, which is gonna be amazing, and I'll be able to chase or get out of a fight. Yeah, but if you're disengaging and you're already using your jump, you should be out of the fight already, because that you can jump a fairly good distance. You can jump over terrain, which is usually how most people use it to escape, so that way they can just mount up because they have to go around the terrain, and then you're out of there. Jumping in, you should already be close enough when you jump in to secure your kill, or you have the jump in range plus the range of your Stormbolt. So you have all of that range to secure. You shouldn't need the movement speed, because those are the only two times you're going to use it to engage or disengage. Those are the only times you use Dwarf Toss. And movement speed doesn't help you. I said toss. I'm screwing up toss. Again. Man, oh man.
You're talking too much. Eat some water.
Yeah, I know, right? Skullcracker. Every third basic attack against the target will stun them for 0.25. Sounds good on paper, but Muradin is not going to hit somebody 3 times in the face generally.
It's too short of a stun, too.
And it's way too short. It's over like that, ladies and gentlemen. Like, it sounds good on paper, but it's not good. I mean, it doesn't even sound appealing on paper to me. Actually, it just bleh.
And I feel like that would alter your play style too, where you'd want to hit the same person 3 times in a row, which might not necessarily be the thing you're supposed to be doing too, right? Anything where I feel like it alters your play style to make you make bad decisions is always a bad talent pick too.
Yeah. Now, my personal favorite on this one, Ironforge Momentum. Basic attacks reduce your ability cooldown by 0.57 seconds. This allows Muradin to do all the things that make Muradin Muradin. Hey, I just smacked you twice. I've reduced my stun cooldown. Now I get to stun you again and lock you down even more. I get to now apply my AA reduction to you more, or I get to apply another form of CC and slow you down. I need to make sure I have Dwarf Toss up, because this fight can go really south really quick. Ironforge Momentum, in my opinion, is the go-to talent on this. It just having a way to reduce your cooldowns is huge in this game, especially for long cooldowns. And Muradin does have a decent cooldown on Dwarf Toss and Stormbolt and Thunderclap. I feel like Ironforge Momentum, you can never go wrong if you pick it.
One trap you can fall into is you can get into mana problems really easily, so you have to make sure you got a lot of mana running into those engages, or else you're going to drain it like crazy there with that.
You're going to have the same problem like Kerrigan does. Kerrigan has got the same ability, just a different name, and you can run out of mana really quick with her. So yeah, that's one thing you have to know what your mana levels are, how long you can stay in a fight before you're going to run out of mana. Those are, I mean, obviously you have the mana bar to watch that for stuff, but I mean, those are things you have to be aware of, how quickly you can drain that mana, because you can drain your entire mana pool in a fight, and it was only a matter of seconds.
And it's something to be cognizant about too, because if you are starting to run low on mana, it makes sense just to be back. Like, because the thing with Muradin is he fills up on health so easily. You might have a full team with full health and such, but if Muradin's low on mana, he can't do his job effectively. It might make sense to say, okay, listen, team, I got to be back here. We're not in an engage. Let me fill up on mana so I can do what I need to do. Too many times I see Muradins go in and be like, I'm out of mana. I'm like, well, you should have dealt with that earlier, because now it's a point where we can't deal with it. You're not doing a lot of damage as Muradin. If it's a disengaged point where people are starting to camp or deal with lanes, just go back, get your mana back up, and get back in full mana.
A Muradin without mana is like pretty much a dead Muradin. He can't do any of it. He's just a body there.
The worst is you hit that thunderclap and then you're like, okay, you jump out and you're like, oh shit, I got no mana left.
I just used my thunderclap because I had to peel for my team, or I just storm bolted. But crap, I'm out of mana and I can't Dwarf Toss away, so let me just hobble my fat ass and run around until I can, get the mana to get out of this fight, and hopefully I live, So that's the biggest thing with Muradin people is A, knowing your abilities and how to use them, and mana management. Because Muradin will eat mana like crazy. They made that's his biggest drawback is he is mana inefficient. He is not good at managing mana. So you have to be careful, know where your mana is, knowing how much that bar or however much you have gives you in a team fight. If it's going to be a peel fight, or if it's going to be a quick poke fight, or if you're going to be in for the long haul on an objective, you should be going in with a full mana bar, or at least close to it.
Yeah, one tip too that I notice a lot of people don't do is if you're out of those engages, say you're doing a camp with a few people on your team, don't burn all your abilities and waste all your mana in the camp. Like you can let your damage dealers do all that too. That can be an opportunity for you to start regenerating some of your mana too.
If you're
way too often, you'd be like, hey, why are you stunning the Merc? Like, he's gonna be dead in like 3 seconds. He did absolutely nothing except waste 60 mana or whatever it is. So just use that opportunity to start building your mana back up when you're out of combat.
Yeah, if you're in a Merc camp as a Muradin, your whole job is to just take damage. You should never be soloing a camp by yourself, really, in a realistic situation. You should always have somebody there doing the brunt of the damage. Your job is just to soak the shots, so that way they can put out all their damage onto it. That's all Muradin's whole goal is in an entire camp. Maybe a Thunderclap. That's about it.
So on this level, I agree. Iron Forge Momentum is kind of the go-to. Piercing Bolt I take from time to time. Not only for the Bruiser, though. I also do it if it's a very heavy melee comp, and I know I'll get a lot of value in those kind of scrums. Yeah. So, I mean, the nice thing about Iron Forge Momentum is it helps all of your abilities, right? It's not just it's not just your Stormbolt. So that's the nice thing about Iron Forge Momentum. So let's move on, because we already talked about the ultimates. So let's go on to level 13. Well, take it away, Shiz. Level 13 talents. Which one are you taking?
All right. 13 is a very interesting setup for him. I feel like there's a couple different ways you can go on this. Burning Rage, 23 damage per second to nearby enemies. It's good, but Muradin already has wave clear, okay-ish wave clear. You really don't need Burning Rage because I feel like all of his two of his others just outclass this altogether.
Just one little thing about Burning Rage in general, it is really useful against Zagara too. If you want to clear creep, you just walk over the creep and you show it up. And
that is a great thing about Burning Rage. But you have Thunderclap to also clear creep. So, but I mean, unless
it's not just here, Joanna and other characters have Burning Rage. It was just a general kind of comment that I'm making there. Anyways, carry on.
Healing Static. This is amazing if you are going for a very tanky Muradin. If you want to never die, Healing Static heals for 5% of your maximum health for each target hit by Thunderclap. If you jump into a team and you Thunderclap 4 or 5 of them, you are healing for 20% to 25% of your health. And as a Muradin, especially late game, that is a lot of health.
Especially in Avatar mode, too.
That is literally an entire Li Ming combo hitting you at full face value in your face, and if you were to get a 5-man Thunderclap, you just healed all of that damage back up.
And against like a Samuro too with his
it's also really good for Samuro.
Yes, the clones count, Avatar clones count, the Vikings all count obviously, but it's a really good talent if they have even Misha. It counts against Misha. But we all know Misha controls Rexar, so.
The other thing about Healing Static, just quick little note here too, is like I mentioned before, you gotta be careful when you take talents that kind of affect your kit in this way, because you have to make sure you're not adversely using Thunderclap now, because it is the peeling, and you want to make sure that you're lowering the movement speed and attack speed of specific heroes. You might not necessarily want to be using for healing too, right? You have to make sure you're using it appropriately, not changing the playstyle too much just to get the heals. I know it's the same thing with Joanna with the blinding flash or whatever it is that you get heals from it.
You can use it for heals. I am going to interrupt you. There are times when you do need to use it for heals, because when you become a good Muradin player, you know when your healers' cooldowns are on rotation, especially if he just used it on you, and you know that you're going to probably need another heal. Using Healing Static, even though it's not the most opportune time to use it to get that heal off, and keep yourself very healthy so you don't have to jump out, that is optimal play. Especially if you took Iron Forge, because by the time that comes up, it should be up in a couple of seconds where you can use it in that ideal situation.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying don't use it for healing if you take that especially. I'm more saying just you have to make sure that you're not just using it for healing and focusing on that all of a sudden.
Yeah,
it's like Joanna's when you spec into the blinding flash camera of the talent skull where you heal up for the number of heroes you have the blind. You still you don't want to necessarily use that just for heals as Joanna. You want to make sure you're still blinding the appropriate appropriate targets and such too. So it's just something to be careful of, and something that I see too often is people starting to use it suboptimally because it's got that additional effect that gives you the healing in this case. Anyways,
just think of it a bonus. Yeah, just think of it as a bonus. Like every time you use it, hey, I gained some health back. Whoopee. Yeah. It's super strong. It's a very, very strong talent, especially if you need to be very, very tanky. It's the way to go if you want to be as tanky as hell. Okay, so the other one. This is his Bruiser one, and it actually does a lot of damage, believe it or not, at level 13. It is called Thunder Strike. Thunderclap deals 300% damage if only one target is hit. That is a lot of damage, and the best thing to use it on is when people are fleeing. And when you get better at your positioning at Muradin, you will position yourself where you will hit that only one person because you're going to position yourself, thunderclap, and then walk right back in. It's a very small AoE, so you can literally walk around and hit it. And the other great news is usually when you're doing it, you're going to be using it on we'll say a Vala or something. That's a lot of damage. Vala's going to vault out. She's not going to vault in. She's going to vault out. Illidan, it's gonna hurt Illidan a lot if he dives in on his back comp and he's the only target. It does even fairly decent damage against tanks too. It's great for the chasing and securing those kills. You jump in, you thunderclap, you probably will secure a kill. And it also has a hidden side to it way later on down the road at level 20 where you can get super max value out of Thunder Strike, and it's gonna pretty much eat up all your mana. But you can literally 100-0 somebody with this combo if you're going for the Bruiser form. What's going on, Black Magic? All right, so at the next talent we have is Spell Shield. Spell Shield is good. Upon taking ability damage, reduce that damage further ability by 50% for 3 seconds. It can only trigger every 30 seconds. Because it's on a 30-second window, it's not viable. It's just he's so
tanky.
Yeah.
Especially because that can get procced by so many things too, right? Like just a stray missile
absolutely.
Or something can set
that off. Yeah, absolutely. There's just too many things that can set it off. And then it's for 3 seconds, and then you don't see this talent again for another 27 seconds. The Muradin's already so tanky is enough. He should just be able to eat them straight in the face and still walk out A-okay, pretty much, as long as he's not getting focus fired. But if he's already getting focus fired, Spell Shield's not going to do anything for you. At that point, healing static. You get a really good amount of heals off of it. So I feel like this one is just it's under par, essentially. If they wanted to make this relevant,
take out healing static.
Lower the cooldown, increase the ability damage, increase the
take out healing static, then I mean, you get Muradin in a lot of ways, but at the same time, you just killed his level 13 completely. At that point, it's 100% Thunder Strike is what you're telling me. That's what you want me to take 100% of the time. The only way they can fix Spell Shield is if they reduced it to make it, we'll say, every 10 seconds or maybe every 15 seconds, maybe. But at that point, you're now turning him into a Nubarak, and you'd be way better than Nubarak.
That's not his niche. They'd never do that. So he's, like you said, he's already tanky enough as it is. So healing stack and Thunder Strike, depending if you want damage or extra survivability, are generally the ways to go there.
All right, level 16. This is where it gets very interesting, folks. This is where a lot of talents open up, and the sky is the limit. At level 16, you have first starting off Dwarf Toss. Increases the range and impact radius of Dwarf Toss by 50%. I don't see this played very much. I feel like it's very nice, but it's outclassed by almost everything else in this entire talent pool. It's good, but it gets outclassed by everything else. So that's just where I'm going to end it. The range is nice. The impact is nice. You're going to do a little bit more damage, but you're pretty much only picking this for the range, but the range is already healthy enough where you'll be able to get over the walls and terrain and escape fights if you need to. We'll move on. Heavy impact. Enemies hit by Dwarf Toss are stunned by for 0.57 seconds. This is actually seeing quite a bit of play in Bruisers and for a dive Muradin. The reason it works is Muradin can go in the back line. He disrupts everyone he hits in the back line when he dives in. That he can turn around and then stun them. And so now you have somebody locked down for, I believe it's 1.57 seconds. And that's a long time to be stunned. Stormbolt is
Yeah, I think it's 1.5 plus 0.75 there. So
let me see here.
Yeah,
1.5. Yep. So 2.25 seconds. That's a long time to be stunned. Essentially, when you jump in, it's pretty damn good. That's why they're taking
it's
it.
It's an AOE stun too, right? So.
It is a very small AOE stun, but it is an AOE stun. But it's good for locking out, targets that you need to kill in the back line. Lunara, Vala, Chromie, Li Ming, Hammer. All those back lines that are super annoying that you have to kill and get to, Heavy Impact helps you get back there and CC them in place so that your team can follow up. That's why Chen and Muradin has been a really good combo because they can dive in, stun him out. Chen can do his thing too, and it's pretty nasty.
Heavy Impact used to be an interrupt for Mosh, but not anymore now that they took away the Unstoppable. So
yeah. Yep. That was the way to go. Actually,
I saw them casting a match, and they're like, "What's Muradin doing?" And then all of a sudden, the Mosh was popped out because it's got the stun there because they forgot that he popped into level 16 Heavy Impact. So okay,
all
give
right.
him the axe.
So,
tell me about this.
Give
one.
him the axe. Attacking a hero that is slowed, rooted, or stunned increases your basic attack damage by 60% for 3 seconds. If you're going Bruiser, this is kind of the way to go. If you want to just put out big dick damage with Muradin and you're going full damage build, this is what you want. You already have a stun built into your kit, essentially. So now what you can do is you have 2 ways that you can actually make your damage. So for 6 seconds, and I'll tell you how, you can have your damage at 60%. You have your stun when you come in. So there's your damage getting increased right there. After the 3 seconds is up, if you have Thunderclap up and you catch him in a Thunderclap, that is another 3 seconds that you have right there. Then you get to dive in, and let's say you took
Ironforge Momentum.
Ironforge Momentum. All of that stuff's going to be up super quick. You're going to be able to do a lot of damage onto them really, really quick. And this is what makes him actually a very viable DPS now, in a sense. And he can put out really good damage and makes him a very viable bruiser. People are picking now Muradin for a tanky bruiser because it works. It's already built into his kit. So if you just add more CC into this, you're pretty much saying most of the time he's got 60% extra damage, and that's amazing for a tank to be able to put out damage. I think he's one of the highest DPS tanks or in the game, actually, believe it or not, with Give Him the Axe, and he's already just super good, so it just makes him even better. All right, now so that's why I would take it. It's really good for damage. But moving on, Imposing Presence, cooldown's 20 seconds. Heroes and summons that attack you. Summons is another great thing about this. That attack you have their attack speed slowed by 20% for 2.5 seconds. Activate to slow the attack speed by 50% and the movement speed by 20 of nearby heroes and summons for 2.5 seconds. What makes this so amazing is you can chain this with your Thunderclap. You can Thunderclap, allow for that 2.5 seconds to go by, reduce their AA by 50 seconds, slap down Imposing Presence. That is now a full 5 seconds of their AA just being completely
imposing presidents.
What did I say?
Imposing presidents. That was awesome, Shiz.
Whatever. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, well, like you said, it's great. And the nice thing about imposing presence, too, is it's a little bit more subtle. So people will start attacking. They don't even realize you've got imposing presence. So you're reducing their attack speed, and they might not notice.
And all of a sudden, and then the slow comes out of nowhere. People don't even expect it half the time because it's been changed. So people are just like, why am I slowed all of a sudden? Well, imposing presence, you can just activate it and then reduce their attack speed and their slow. So it's also great for chasing too, because if you're chasing somebody and they're running away and you need something, here, have an imposing presence. Let me just catch you real quick so that way I can get my stun off on you. That's what makes it really good. I feel like it's kind of outclassed a little bit by Heavy Impact and Give Him the Axe, but it's still very, very, very viable.
How about Stoneform? Stoneform used to be like the go-to pick.
It was the go-to, but now it's kind of fallen off. Stoneform, activate to heal for 40% of your maximum health over 10 seconds. Second Wind is disabled during this time. That's probably the biggest thing that hurt this is Second Wind is disabled during this time. That change right there. And the fact that they made Muradin super tanky. Too. Yeah, 10 seconds is ages, and the fact that they gave him Third Wind at level 1, Third Wind's better than Stoneform. I mean, unless you're just trying to go to full health. I mean, that's 60%, and this only does 40%, and it's over 10 seconds, while Third Wind does it over 4 seconds, I believe.
Well, it's pretty fast.
Yeah,
whichever way you shake it. So it's lost a lot of its viability, especially when you're looking at the other talents on this tier too, right? Whenever you're looking at talent tiers, you got to compare it to the other talents available. So,
I mean, unless you need to just be like super tank and like, I don't see. I mean, he's already tanky enough with Avatar and everything, but I don't see this being like where like you need Stone Form anymore because of Third Wind. As long as you manage your mana, you can just jump out, disengage. Bait them if you want to, heal back up, and you're right back where you started from. I don't see a point where you're going to say, hey, I need that extra 40% over 10 seconds, unless your healer's and your healer's having a lot of problems, and he's going because he's having to heal the back line, and he's saying, I need you to worry about you. So you have to go all the healing talents you can. That would be the only time I would ever say take this. So
generally, imposing presence doesn't only help yourself, and your own damage mitigation helps for the whole team too, right? So I feel like that gives you more value here on this tier if you're looking for something more tanky in general.
And if you are going Stone Form, you should probably pop Avatar before because it goes from 40% of maximum health. So because Avatar gives you a lot more maximum health, you're going to...
In general, just kind of keeping an eye out for those little tricks and stuff too, like along the way, is a good way to min-max your abilities too.
Yeah.
Let's keep moving on. We're almost an hour and a half. Jeez. Keep talking. Keep getting off. I thought it was going to be a short show.
I love Muradin. You guys got one of my favorite heroes.
You cut Shiz ranting.
All right.
Okay, level 20.
20. Unstoppable Force. Increases the duration of Avatar by 30%, and the duration of disables are reduced by 75% while in Avatar. It's really good. Sounds really good, but I feel like he has better talents later on. I wouldn't take this based over his other two talents we're going to talk about later on. Grand Slam, damage of Haymakers increased by 25%, cost is lowered by 40, can start 2 charges. If you went Playmaker and you want to be able to just slam people around and, as it says, Grand Slam them, hey, go do it. I mean, it works, but I mean, again, I feel like you could get more impact out of other talents, out of these other 2 talents. So for the tanky side, if you went Avatar, I feel like you should be going Hardened Shield. Just for the simple fact that you can activate to reduce damage taken by 75% for 4 seconds. That makes you pretty much nigh unkillable for 4 seconds. You're gonna take 0 damage almost. It's ridiculous. So if you went Avatar, Hardened Shield's the way to go. It's better than Unstoppable Force. That's my opinion. The other talent you could also take is Rewind. Rewind is amazing for resetting if you need stun, jump. Think about how long you can stun somebody. You can jump in spot to stun somebody if you took the talent on, what is it? I think it was 16, Heavy Impact. You can literally jump on someone, stun them as soon as that's up, hit Rewind, jump right back in the same spot, and stun them again with a Thunderclap. And if you did take the Thunderclap or the Thunderclap talent at 13 Thunderstrike, you do a lot of damage. You can literally 100 to 0 somebody with this almost. Like I've seen it done to Li Mings. You can do it to Chromies. Any squishy, you can literally just put them out of the fight completely. Especially in a 1v1, you can 1v1 them, and you will generally win as long as you're smart about it.
Yeah.
And you land all your stuns. Yeah,
mana can be an issue. You got to make sure you got enough mana to pull the
you'll go
off
through,
in general.
Yeah. You'll go through all your mana. You'll 100 to 0 your mana to 100 to 0 their health.
The nice thing about Hardened Shield is it's not dependent on mana at all. It's just a pure cooldown. Yeah. I mean, Rewind isn't technically either, but getting your effectiveness out of it, you're going to be using more.
It does have a fairly long cooldown though, 60 seconds. That is a decent cooldown, but it's worth it. So.
Okay. So that's your tank there. There are some options. There's generally a couple of choices on each tier in general, but you can tweak them as needed for the specific cases. Okay, so let's move on to our final segment, because again, we just hit an hour and a half. This is a long show, even though we were expecting to be a shorter one. Blizzcon. Now, we've got to talk about Blizzcon a bit. I can't wrap the show up yet. Let's first talk about what happened last week, because it was the initial group stage just went off. For those of you that don't know, the format is there was an initial Phase 1 group stage. 4 teams, 2 from each bracket, would advance to Phase 2. Now, there's 4 teams that already have buys to Phase 2. So there was a total of 8 teams in the Phase 1. Now, we got through that with MVP Black and Denial advancing from Group A, and Fnatic and Please Buff Arthas coming from Group B. So obviously, MVP Black, they're almost favored to win the tournament. They got, I guess, a little bit upset by Ballistics, so they would have been expected typically to get the bye there. So they just walked all over everyone. Is there any surprises here at all? I mean, I guess E-Star was a bit of a potential underdog. I'm not sure if everyone saw Please Buff Arthas coming out of here.
Please Buff Arthas was absolutely amazing to watch. They were an underdog, and they surprised a lot of people, an absolute ton. I mean, they took games off of teams that nobody thought was possible. They upset teams that nobody thought that they were going to beat. I mean, they beat E-Star. They beat Zero Panda. These were great series to watch. It was just a very, very phenomenal thing to watch. I'm so passionate about BlizzCon. It makes me smile. So it was. Fnatic was amazing. I know we haven't got to Fnatic yet, but Fnatic, they saved a 1% core, turned around, and was able to win it. Fantastic game. I believe that was against Zero Gaming Panda, believe it or not. So if you haven't seen them, go to Twitch, or you're already on Twitch, go watch them.
So not everyone's got a ton of time watching games. If you had to say there was like one game to watch, is there a specific one that you can think of from either Phase 1 or the beginning of Phase 2 play?
If you want to see a team that's absolutely like godlike and you just want to see pure cohesion go off, and that's absolutely and utterly brilliant, watch any of the MVP Black games. It doesn't matter which one you do. You're going to see it pretty much nigh on perfect.
Ballistics
play.
had like a 7-minute and 30-second game, I think.
No,
too.
that was actually MVP Black had like a 7-minute game, and it was they did against Please Buff Arthas. But I mean, if you want to watch a team to the absolute perfection, MVP Black is my go-to. Very closely followed by Ballistics, formerly known as L5. They're gonna be in the finals. That's gonna be the finals in my opinion. They're just too dominant. If you want to see an amazing nail biter game, Fnatic against Zero Panda or Zero Gaming was absolutely amazing.
I missed that one. I'll have to check it out.
A 1% core saved by Zero Panda. Yeah, Fnatic turned around and won the series. I'm not going to spoil it, but
I feel like
I've already spoiled it. But I know I'm terrible at this. But Fnatic versus Zero Panda was an amazing series to watch overall. Like, it was absolutely great. That would be my game that I would say that was hyped up the most, because there was so much going on, and you get to see Dahaka. And the Dahaka was absolutely amazing. So if you've ever wondered, how do I play Dahaka in this crazy game, and how is he ever good or viable, go watch Fnatic play Dahaka. And they'll tell you exactly how you play him.
Just in general, I love watching esports and just watching a single hero and just watching one of the pros play that guy and see like the little things they use. Like, it's one thing to watch it as like a whole team, but if you just zero one hero and be like, hey, you want to learn how to play Dahaka? You watch him. You want to learn how to play Kerrigan? You watch MVP Rich.
Yeah, if you want to see any hero play that's a carry role, you watch MVP Rich. Zeratul, Chen, Alarak is amazing. Butcher, is Zeratul. He's known for Zeratul. Kerrigan. Illidan. Oh my gosh.
So Illidan. Versatile. There's a reason he's considered the best player in the game.
Oh my gosh. But there's a reason why MVP Black is so dominant and why Rich is considered the best. Go watch any VOD you can find of them. It's disgusting. They only lose to their own country, and there's a reason to it, and it's absolutely amazing.
Okay, so out of Group 1, like I said, we had MVP Black, Denial, Fnatic, and Please Buff Arthas coming out of it. They advanced to Group 2. Now, the winners of Group 2, there's 4 teams in Group 2, 2 from each kind of group in Phase 2, that goes to the final playoffs. Now, what we've had coming out of last week, you only actually played half of the Phase 2 stage. The teams that have made it through to the actual playoffs in BlizzCon are MVP Black and Ballistics, both Korean teams. Surprise, surprise. So we still have some of the Phase 2 yet to play, and that will be on Friday. The games start on Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific for any of those interested, and they go up until about midnight, I think. So check that out. There's still, let's see who's left in Group A. We got Dignitas from Europe, Astral Authority from NA, Please Buff Arthas from Taiwan, Denial Esports from North America, Zero Panda from China, and Fnatic from EU. So we still have both our EU teams and our North America team, so that makes me happy. I'm still rooting for NA, even though I know this is Korea's tournament pretty much to lose here.
Oh, yeah.
I think the only people that can actually come a game off of MVP Black or the Koreans in general, yes, is Dignitas. I think if you want to see a very good game where somebody actually almost did take a game off of them, go watch Dignitas versus MVP Black. I think it came to one mistake that Dignitas made and threw it, and that led to them losing that game.
But I feel like mistakes against MVP Black, that's for sure.
You can't make mistakes in a Korean meta, period, because if you make mistakes against MVP or Ballistics, they're going to punish you super hard for it, and it's a snowball effect. It really is. The most minuscule mess ups that you wouldn't even call a mess up are the game changers to them. It's surreal almost.
Yeah, so if you want to check out high-level play, though, Friday's where it starts, the end of Phase 2. Again, those are just the ones that are vying for the spots in the playoffs, and the playoffs are on Saturday. There's 2 semifinals, followed by the grand finals. The grand finals is a best of 5. Hopefully we'll get all 5 rounds. It would be amazing, but generally you don't seem to get that quite competitive in the finals, but you never know. If we get a Ballistics versus MVP Black, that might go all the way. Do you guys expect to see MVP Black Ballistics in the finals, or what? I guess you said that you might see Dignitas kind of come through here, but
if AA gets their head out of their ass and decides to actually play like a team,
fired.
They did not play up to what everyone, and I mean, I'm a huge AA fan. I love the former Murloc geniuses, now known as Astral Authority. They need to step up their game. They were not as impressive as I thought they were going to be. I feel like they could have done more. I feel like the other teams to watch right now is also Dignitas. I feel like Dignitas has a chance to beat maybe MVP Black due to the fact that they did their boot camp training up to this in Korea and played against MVP Black. So they have the most knowledge against how to beat them outside of a Korean team. So those are the 2 teams that I would like to see. Please buff Arthas. You're going to see some great play out of them. They are They are the upset team right now that is surprising everybody right now. So if you haven't watched them, they're doing absolutely amazing. They're the only small region that is actually still left in this tournament that is still pushing forward and still looks very super strong. And Fnatic is another team, too, that is surprising a lot of people. They're doing just so well in this tournament, and the upsets that they've taken off of China, and both Chinese teams, against Please Buff Arthas was amazing, and it's just very, very great games. A lot of action and a lot of the Fnatic games that goes on.
And let's be honest here. If we had to give the name game winner here, it would be Please Buff Arthas. Either that or the team that didn't quite make it because of visa issues, the Super Perfect team or whatever they're called. I like those team names for sure. Okay, so yeah, some of the best heroes esports, but you know we're also going to get some announcements, obviously, from Blizzcon. There's 2 panels that are going to happen. The deep dive, I think, is where most of the announcements are going to be made. That's 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific on the Friday. So if you've paid for a Blizzcon virtual ticket, you can check that out and you can get all the announcements live. We expect a few heroes out of that at least. Anything else we're thinking we're going to see here, boys? Maybe some... Well, probably not new maps, but any sort of new modes or anything. What do you think? Are they going to tweak ranked, maybe?
I don't know. I know they got a lot of secrets and a lot of stuff that they want to surprise me with, and I just hope I'm like a giddy little schoolgirl, you know.
It's always impossible to predict. They're going to throw some sort of curveball, some crazy, weird Cho'Galle type heroes or something.
Oh, yeah. I heard that they were going to release maybe at least one gimmick hero like Cho'Galle or something.
Oh, they do it every
like
year.
Lost Vikings.
It was Lost Vikings, then Cho'Galle. It'll be interesting to see what they do this time.
Some people were saying that they might bring out an old classic, Rock and Roll Racing. I don't know how they get that in there. I think that's more people just hoping for something random, but Rock and Roll Racing?
Are you talking about Carbot again?
I don't know. You love your Carbot, Shiz.
I do love Carbot. They come up with the best
straight
stuff.
From Reddit. All the conspiracy theories. People love to talk about conspiracy theories. So.
I know, and Reddit loves Carbot, so...
Yeah. So there's a second panel, State of the Game as well, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. I think that's more just like kind of where the game's going in general, just kind of more overarching topics they'll be talking about. I'm not sure there's going to be as many reveals. There might be some indication of where, like, say, rank play is going in the future. But I don't think we'll see much more out of that. Yeah, so anything else you guys hoping to see out of BlizzCon before we wrap up the show?
Maybe for NA to beat our Korean overlords.
Yeah, that would be very nice.
I'd love an upset for sure somewhere in the tournament. Like it's been nice seeing Please Buff Arthas do well, but to be honest, it doesn't really matter until you get to the playoffs. Like we want to see some upsets in the semifinals or finals, and who knows? Maybe some teams are going to crack under the pressure. Maybe all it takes is a few games to bring your A game, and you're into the next round, right? Next thing you know, you've eliminated MVP Black or Ballistics. So. Yeah, so, hey boys, this is our second show. Did a pretty good job, I think. I think we're going to cut her short here, and I say cut her short at the 1 hour and 42 minute mark. Holy shit. Long. Yeah, I think we're going to try and come a little bit shorter than this in the future. But hey, everybody, thank you all for listening to the Nexus Trolls, a Heroes of the Storm podcast. We stream this live on our Twitch channel, which you're probably on right now, twitch.tv/the Nexus Trolls, every week on Wednesdays at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific. You can also subscribe to our show on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or wherever you happen to find your podcasts online. And if you go to those sites too, make sure you give us a 5-star review because it definitely helps with the discoverability. So also, visit our website at www.thenexustrolls.com and where you can watch this and past shows along with past video streams as well. And those can also be found on our YouTube channel, which will all be embedded on the site. So for announcements of the show and general hero news, you can also follow us on Twitter at the Nexus Trolls. And finally, if you need to get in touch with us, the best way to do it is to email us at podcast@thenexustrolls.com. We'd love to field emails live in a show, so send us an email, please. And that being said, I'm going to toss on my favorite outro. Here we go, boys.
Oh, my gosh.
'Cause I'm TNT, I'm dynamite, and I'll win that fight. TNT, I'm a power load. TNT, watch me explode.
Well, gents, have a great week and keep trolling.